So for those who may not understand how you communicate silently, I can be walking down the street and a brother or a sister is approaching me. I won't say a word. I'll just slightly nod my head and they know I'm saying hello. How are you doing? I can walk into a room and look around the room and just move my hand slightly. And another person who looks like me will understand. I can use my eyes. I could use all type of ways to communicate silently. And so when we communicate in silence, it's not like we're not passing out messages. We are.
You're listening to the Her Money Story podcast with your host, Felicia Gopaul. Every woman has a story that explains her relationship to money and finances, and a woman's story about money shapes her actions, both positive and not, for years to come. This podcast is for any woman learning how to take care of her money so that her money can take care of her now and into the future.
Hello, everyone. This is Felicia Gopaul. Today, I'm pleased to have a longtime friend on my podcast. Joining me is Dr. Reverend Ahmondra McClendon. Now, money is a funny topic and is often surrounded with a lot of secrecy, shame, and silence, which has a direct impact on our psyche and our health. But it's not the only thing that women have to contend with that we conceal that has a palpable effect on our mental and physical well-being. Today, I'd like to have you join me as I have a conversation with Dr. Reverend Ahmondra McClendon, who is an ordained interfaith minister holding a Master of Social Work degree and a Doctor of Ministry degree from New York Theological Seminary. With 35 years plus of human service delivery, she has a unique perspective and insight into our lives. Although her life is in harmony now, it wasn't always so, like so many of us. For many years, she existed within the legacy of silence, a generational pattern of behavior. Living behind a wall of silence, she was trapped in a world of painful secrets while acting as if everything is okay. And I really wanted to have her on because I remember a time when I was trapped in a legacy of silence and I did not want anybody to know that I was not okay. So listeners, please join me in welcoming today's guest, Ahmondra McClendon.
Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun.
It is.
So recognizing and realizing that our circumstance do not determine our future, she changed her perspective and she changed her thinking, making herself the most important person in her life and transitioned from pain to passion. So you wrote a book recently. So tell me about the book that you wrote. I am all excited about it. It's called Uncrowned Queen Reclaims Her Throne, When a Black Woman Breaks Her Silence. So tell me about this book. It's a fascinating title, and you got to tell us the story.
Okay. So first of all, I did not wake up one day and say, oh, I want to write a book and put my whole life out there in the world. Yeah. I had just defended my dissertation and was granted my doctorate and walked outside of the offices of New York Theological Seminary, and the world shut down with COVID. And I got on a plane, flew back to California, and I knew something was happening when there were only 6 passengers on that plane.
Wow.
By the time I arrived home, the world had gone inside, closed the doors, closed the windows. And I was standing there with this brand new program that I was getting ready to launch called Multi-Faith Diversity Education for Social Workers. I was going to train social workers how to bring their clients' religious beliefs and faith traditions into the conversation. That stopped. And I heard this voice, like I always hear the divine speaking to me. It's time to write the book. I didn't want to write the book, and I knew what that meant. And I did want to write it because I was going to have to revisit some very dark places. But I also knew I had a responsibility to share with other women, particularly Black women, how I was able to move through a lot of traumatic experiences and get to the other side. And so I started writing the book, and it took 2.5 years. I would write, and because I was going into very painful places and secrets, I would have to stop, back up, and come back to it. And when I finished, I had a story of healing and transformation, but I also had a story of how we passed down generational patterns of behaviors. My grandmother gave it to my mother gave it to my older sister, it was given to me. This whole premise of staying silent. And what I discovered was that this legacy of silence originally was put in place to protect us.
Okay.
When we were kidnapped and brought from Africa over here, silence was how we had to communicate. Because if we said the wrong things, it could mean death to someone or death to ourselves. So we learned how to use silence as a way to communicate. And we passed that on to our children. And after generation after generation, after physical captivity, we had to navigate through this whole systemic racist world. And silence was still a powerful tool that was given to us. Unfortunately, that tool not only kept us quiet outside, it kept us quiet inside. And so we started to not talk about hurtful things inside of the home. And because Black women are the ones that are moving forward, always taking care of people, always taking care of business, we developed the capacity to move forward with pain because we weren't allowed to stop. That started in captivity. Black women were commodities during that time, and we did not have the time to stop. So the legacy of silence that started there has been passed on generations to generations. And I saw that when I was writing the book.
So there was a lot to unpack there. And there's a number of things that you talked about. So I often talk about money. It's the only place that we have stayed silent. So talk about some of the other areas where silence shows up. And I think it's interesting that you said that the way that we communicated was through silence. That people think of silence as a way to communicate, but I can definitely see that we use it as a way to keep ourselves safe, and it doesn't always serve us.
Exactly. And so for those who may not understand how you communicate silently, I can be walking down the street and a brother or a sister is approaching me. I won't say a word. I'll just slightly nod my head, and they know I'm saying, hello, how are you doing? I can walk into a room and look around the room and just move my hand slightly. And another person who looks like me will understand. I can use my eyes. I could use all type of ways to communicate silently. And so when we communicate in silence, it's not like we're not passing out messages. We are. Now, one of the things that we started being silent about, Black women, is when we were violated. We had to be quiet about that because that person who's doing the violating might be the breadwinner of the home. We couldn't expect that person to be put out of the house because they were the breadwinner. And so we stayed silent about that. We kept quiet about it. We kept quiet about it. And if we told our mothers or grandmothers, they had experienced the same thing, they stayed silent about it. We stayed silent when others outside of the home hurt us, because if we said something, that person might have enough power to destroy our families. So that silence became a way for us to protect our families. Might not protect us, but it became a way to protect our families. And it continued.
And so, how do we have this legacy of silence and pass it down generation to generation? Do we just train our daughters, our family members, that there are areas that we just don't talk about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Events happen, and we are told, don't talk about that. Don't say what happened. Tell this other story. As a social worker, before I was a social worker, I lived in public housing. And back in the day, social workers who were white used to come into the Black communities, and they would go through the homes of those individuals who were receiving monthly allotments, and they would be looking for evidence that a male lived in the home, because at that time you could not receive public assistance if a male was living in the home. So it was important that we kept silent about that. So as a little girl, we were told, and a little boy also, but a little girl, don't you say what's going on. Don't you say Uncle Joe lives here. Be silent. And so it was passed down. And again, a way to protect us. But it turned into a way that we start pushing down painful secrets, and we start keeping them. So when you're trained to do something as a small person, it continues on as an adult. So you learn to be quiet as a little girl. You do the same as an adolescent. You do the same as a young adult, and it just continues. For me, it was when I stepped into the place of being a young married person, living with a man who was emotionally abusive. I didn't say anything about that. It was important that I appeared to be okay, because I didn't want to cause turmoil or conflict for my mom, who might worry about me. I wanted to keep her safe, so I stayed quiet about that abuse. I wanted everybody on the outside to think I was okay. Again, I'm not taking care of me. I'm taking care of others. And so I stayed silent about that. And one of the ways that I coped was I started to drink and I started to use drugs to numb the pain. And that started the whole process of addiction that I stayed silent about.
Wow. It was interesting when I was listening, because I was listening to your book. I was just like, I've known her for a long time, and there were things about you that I didn't know. And I was just, it's funny, in my business, I often talk about the no talk rule in terms of money. And I just realized, and as I was listening to your book, is not only do I have no talk rule about money and finance, but I seem to also have this no talk rule amongst my friends about what is okay to talk about and what is not okay to talk about. So I knew about your addictions. Remember that I knew that you had been married before. Do you know what I'm saying? Like there were things that I just knew, but I didn't know. And so the no talk rule, the silence, the legacy of silence is embedded. Now there are things that we're comfortable talking about, and there are things that we are uncomfortable talking about. And what that is, what is that takes you from being comfortable to uncomfortable to talk about it, and then getting to a point where you're comfortable about it. So there are things that I'm sure you wrote about in your book that you are now comfortable talking about. So what's that journey, if you will, for you?
For me, I was blessed in that I had a diagnosis of a life-threatening disease, discoid lupus erythematosus. And that started the wake-up call for me. I started realizing I have to do something or I could possibly die, because I started to understand how my lupus flare-ups were in direct relationship to the stress I was under. And so slowly, my life started shifting. I started making changes. And then when my husband put his hands on me physically, and I gave him a gun and told him to shoot me because you cannot hit me. That was the last wake-up call. I have to get out of here. And I say I'm blessed because the door to recovery was opened up to me. I had no idea that I was an addict and alcoholic because I got up every day and I went to work and I had high-powered jobs and I was functioning in the world, yet I still had active addiction. So when I stepped into recovery is when I started learning that I needed to forgive individuals. I needed to release all of these secrets I had pushed down. Well, because there was a safe space created, and I stepped into the program of Narcotics Anonymous. It is an anonymous program and it is a safe space. And I was able to join with a group of women that are still friends with me today. And we slowly started speaking. We slowly started talking. And for 36 years, we've been together. And that is when I started learning how to break the silence and how to talk about those things. And that everybody else had the same secrets.
It is surprising. Yeah, I mean, but it is surprising because when we aren't talking about it, we feel like we're the only ones who are going through it. When we start talking about whatever our truth is, we find that there's lots of people. I mean, there was the whole Me Too moment, and then there's all these women who are like, Me Too, and and there's just all these areas that we've been trained to not talk about, that there's a lot of other people who are in that pain of addiction, pain of, being in domestic violence. All of those places are places that many of us, certainly not everybody has been through it, but many of us have been through, and we haven't talked about it.
Exactly. And as I was writing the book, it was extremely important that it not just be my story, because it's not about me. And so every book, at the end of the chapter, there's a section I ask questions so that the reader can step into their own story. I talk about the defining moments. What happened as a result of that experience that I had? How did I handle it? And I created an organization called the Original Queen Sacred Community. Because when you start talking about those secrets, you will need to be in a safe space. And the spaces that are around you currently may not be safe enough for you to start breaking that silence. You need to be in a space with others who understand and who create a positive space, a non-judgmental space for you to begin to speak your truth. And that is why I created the Original Queens. And even inside the Original Queens, I realized that some of the pain and trauma that may come up will need professional help. And so inside of that group, we have another group called the Legacy Group, where I have friends who are licensed clinical social workers. They are in that group. And so if an individual steps into that group because they say, oh, I need professional help, I need more, there's a space for them to do that work. And it's a smaller group. It's a paid group. And it's a place where they can work one-on-one with a licensed clinical social worker or a therapist. It's a large area that we have to deal with. And I wanted to make sure that I respected that and I handled it in a way that would bring healing and not cause more trauma.
Interesting. So you and I have known each other for quite a few years. And one of the things that happened for me recently is I put together a group of ladies to join me for a big birthday for me. And one of the things that I heard again and again from these ladies were, how do you know these people? And how is it that these conversations have been just kind of evolving. And what I came to realize is that through knowing you and the people that we've kind of met through the years, I have created this safe space where I have people that I could talk to. But I also
Yes.
realize that not everybody has that. I mean,
Yes.
because you have it and everybody that I know has it. I just assume that everybody else has it. And what I learned in over that week was not everybody has that.
Oh, absolutely. You're so right. You know, I went to an event not long ago, and I was sitting next to a woman, and I was like, "Oh, I wrote a new book here," and I gave her my flyer, and we just started talking. And she joined the original Queens, and she said, "I have never had a space like this. I've never been able to get with a group of women and talk like this." And she was excited about that. And that is one of the realizations that I had at the very beginning of writing the book when I said, it's not about me. It's about those who don't have, who weren't blessed to have what I had, was a space for healing. And I also went to Africa and lived for a year in Ghana. And that gave me the information about who we are as Black people from the African diaspora, because I did not have that information here. And when I got that information, I learned that women get together, they talk together, they heal together. That is who we are. We are sisterhood. And that is what I'm creating with Original Queens. It's sisterhood. We are the original queens. When you look at scientific evidence, 4.4 million years ago, the original individual was a Black woman from
Yeah.
Africa. We are the original queens. And because the narratives that are out there about us weren't written by us, they were written by others, and they don't tell our truth. And now it's a great time in the world because we are beginning to speak our truth. And so my book is saying you can speak your truth. And here's a safe space for you to begin to do that. And we are dying. The number one killer of Black women is heart attack and stroke. That's why my book, I say it's an urgent call to action. We have to take action because we are dying. And we're not giving the information to younger generations that they don't have to continue these legacies that we are living inside of.
So I think it's interesting because, I have two young girls. And so I really try to be really thoughtful about what kind of legacy do I want to have them step into and live inside of. And so one of the things that I know that I did several years ago, and I will definitely continue to do that, and I have talked to them about, which is you need to have a group of girlfriends. You know what I'm saying? There was
Yes, yes.
who were at my event and they were just like, have a group of girlfriends that I could just go to. And I think that your original queen concept is really, really powerful. And I talked to them about you really need to have a group of girlfriends that you are with for 20, 30 years. Because it makes a huge difference in terms of nourishing your spirit and nourishing your soul and having people that you can talk to about what's going on and take off the mask. I mean, so many of us are walking around with masks on. It's just like, because I what really resonated for me is you were very, like you were accomplished flirting and hiding all the same time.
Yes, veiling the sadness. Yeah.
Who are doing that very same thing. We're so used to doing it.
Yes.
So
we don't know of any other way.
Yes, we don't know of any way.
I wanted to also add that in creating the original queens for Black women from the African diaspora, I also created a group called Friends of the Queens, because I have a lot of friends who are not of African descent, who love me and I love them, but they don't know who I am because they only have the narratives that are out there about us. And so I created a group specifically for them so that they can ask those questions they're afraid to ask, or they can understand me on a level that they could not understand me if we were just out in the world. And then that's sisterhood also. That's
Yes.
developing a sisterhood.
Right.
So it's broad and it takes in Black women and women who are of non-African descent, because we all have to heal.
Yeah, we all have to heal.
Yeah.
So why is the title of your book significant?
That is so amazing. The title did not come up first. The book, I started writing and the title came out. I do a lot of work with the ancestors. When I was in Africa, I learned how to call on the ancestors. We stand on those shoulders. And as I'm praying and writing, the title surfaced. The uncrowned queen reclaims her throne. We are queens, but when we were kidnapped and brought here, our crowns were removed. And over generations and generations and generations, we forgot that we even had crowns. And now it's time to reclaim our thrones and understand that we are queens and step back into our queendom. And the second half, when a Black woman breaks the silence, I wanted to put in words that people could understand, because just saying the uncrowned queen reclaims her throne doesn't give you the information. But when I say when a Black woman breaks the silence, they can begin to understand this is a Black woman who's talking about something that she hasn't talked about before.
Yeah, powerful, powerful. Could you kind of talk about, I'm going to kind of step back a minute and have you just kind of talk about these generation of patterns of behavior called the legacy and how they affect Black women. So we've talked about how they affect our mental health and how they affect our bodies and how it's causing us to have heart attacks and heart disease at younger ages. And I know that many of my listeners know that I've been suffering from heart disease since I was in my 40s. So I don't know what that's you know what I'm saying, but it has been a long time and ongoing. As I have grown and as my friends have grown, I've just been hearing again these things, these whispers of, yeah, I've got that too, and yeah, I've got that too, and yeah, I've got that too. So talk about these generational patterns.
The generational patterns of behaviors, they are behaviors, again, that were originally formed when we came to this continent. Okay. So I spoke about the legacy of silence, but after writing the book, the legacy of endurance surfaced and the legacy of mothering. Okay, we are known to be able to endure anything. And when I say we, I'm talking about Black women from the African diaspora. We endure trauma, we endure pain, we endure all of this stuff, we absorb it and we keep moving forward. Well, we had to. When we arrived on this in this space, in this country, we were commodities. We had a myriad of skills. Yeah. And those skills were exploited. Yeah. And we had to learn how to endure everything and not stop and keep moving forward. And so that was passed down. You have to endure, you have to keep going, you can't stop, you have to keep going, and you have to look okay. It's not all right to not look okay. You have to look good. And so that legacy of endurance became ours. That legacy is on top of us, weighing us down, wreaking havoc in our bodies, because we don't stop to take care of ourselves, to nurture ourselves. We put everybody else first. And we keep moving forward. The legacy of mothering. Oh my goodness, we are the queen mothers. I spoke about that. We are the original mothers. Well, in Africa, motherhood is revered. It's
Mm.
respected. It's
Mm.
sacred. Well,
Okay.
just think about the fact that women were snatched from their homelands, from their safe environments, put inside of an environment where that practice was no longer sacred. They turned us into baby making machines. And what was once sacred became something very painful
Mm.
because here we are giving birth and we're having to release our children, let go of our children. We can't nurture them, we can't love them. And we look up and we see other babies coming who were taken from their mothers, and we nurtured them and we love them. So mothering becomes painful for us.
Mm.
A sacred practice becomes painful. And then we were forced to nurture our captors' children. You stop taking care of your child and you take care of my child. And then that child that we take care of grows up and becomes our captor, our torturer, causes pain. So mothering becomes very painful for us. But it also becomes a behavior we continue to do. We cannot stop doing it. And we find ourselves mothering individuals who no longer need to be mothered. We can let them go. But we're mothering. We mother everything, plants, animals, people.
Got it.
That legacy of mothering. I don't have biological children. That doesn't matter. I had an infant care center. I worked in preschools. I worked with teens. I have been mothering all my life
Yep. Got it.
because it's in our DNA. So the legacy of silence, the legacy of endurance, the legacy of mothering, and I'm sure other legacies will surface as I continue to do this work. Now, on my website, I actually wrote a new ebook about the Queen's Legacies Revealed. You can go to the website, you can download that book, and it talks in detail about legacy of silence, legacy of endurance, and the legacy of mothering. Because it was important that individuals be able to understand those legacies, maybe before they even read the book. Maybe they're not ready to hear my story, but they're definitely ready to hear about these generational patterns of behaviors that are in their life today. They can see them, they can identify them. So I wanted to make sure that was available.
It's interesting because while you're in social work, there's an element of personal finance that is social work. I can't call it anything else. But I definitely see that legacy of silence in how people handle their money. I definitely see that legacy of endurance in why they stay in jobs with people. Maybe it's time to let them go. I see it in their money and how they take care of grown children, their sisters, brothers, baby mama. Take care of other people, but don't necessarily take care of themselves. And so,
Yeah.
again, I thought your book was powerful because, maybe I've been in this space too long. And I don't think I've been in this space too long, but I can definitely see parallels in different areas of my life, in different areas of my clients' lives, and how it shows up. I think it's really powerful, the legacies that you have identified, because it is so entrenched, it is so pervasive. There's also what I'm really starting to notice in this next generation of younger people is there seems to be a backlash. It's just like, I'm not going to have that be my future. And can you kind of
Yes,
speak to that?
I certainly can. I was on a panel right before the book launched, and there was a young woman, I think she must have been in her 40s, and she started crying. And she said, "Oh my goodness, I have young women who are speaking their truth, but there's nobody in your generation saying to them, it's okay, giving
Mm.
them permission." She said, "They're doing it, but they feel like they're out there by themselves. They don't have the nurturance and that conversation that says, yes, sweetheart, you can speak your truth. It's okay." Come on over here. I will listen to you. And so it's important that women in my generation and those who are right below me open the door and share what we're holding behind those walls of secret. Because when we share what's behind those walls of secret, younger women feel validated and they feel okay and they feel nurtured. Just the fact that somebody is saying what they're saying, and they're saying it's okay, you can speak your truth. Yeah. It is very challenging to begin to speak your truth when you haven't spoken forever. And one of the behaviors that I put in place is I wrote a companion journal to go with the book. Okay. It's called the Appreciation Journal. I understand that before you could jump into powerful healing, you have to begin to acknowledge yourself. That's the first step. You have to acknowledge who you are. And we have gratitude journals. And what I've noticed that when we're grateful, it's usually for something outside of us. And that's a great thing. But what happens to us? So in the appreciation journal, every morning you are writing down 5 things that you appreciate about yourself. And I put a cheat sheet in the book because it's difficult to come up with 5 things you appreciate about yourself that are not tied to somebody else or something else. What do you appreciate about yourself? On the website, there is a ritual. It's called the I Am Ritual. I Appreciate Me Ritual. You can download the steps, and it teaches you how to begin that process. When you wake up in the morning, you take a deep breath, and the first thought you have is about you. Not about somebody, it's about you. You get up, you grab your journal with an ink pen, and you sit down and you write those 5 things you appreciate about you. You take a deep breath and you just allow yourself to be. If you have devotional readings, you can read it at that place. But you just sit for those few minutes, and that sets your day. You train individuals in your family that in those first 10 minutes or 15 minutes, unless someone's dying, a friend of mine said, unless they're broken or bleeding, it's my 10 minutes. When I was in Africa, I would wake up. I lived in a household with many people, 5 or 6 people. When I got up, they understood I was going outside to pray. And I could walk through the house and not say anything to anyone, and it was okay. I would go outside, I do my devotional, and when I come back in, then I'm speaking and saying hi. But those first 5, 10, 15 minutes were mine. When we start doing that, if we do that for 21 days, it becomes a habit. Then it turns into a practice, and it begins to lift us up to a place where then we can begin to look at other things. But first, we have to look at ourselves.
Let me ask you a question. So when you said that, I was just like, what do I appreciate about me? You know, I mean, it's so not intuitive for me at this point that I was just like, what would be a, for instance, if you will, as something I could say that I appreciate about me?
Because I know you, it's easy. You can say, I appreciate the fact that I'm willing to have hard conversations about money. I appreciate the fact that I put a plan in place and I move forward on that plan. I appreciate the fact I created a business in a world that's a male-dominated business world. And I have been at it for 30 years. Okay. So, yeah. Exactly. It's so challenging to, what do I appreciate about myself? I appreciate the fact that you didn't have children. You decided to have children. You had 2 children and you're raising them consciously. You can say, I appreciate the fact that I mother consciously. That's why I put cheat sheets in the book.
Thank you very much. Maybe I'm gonna have to get an audio version and a written version so that I can get my little cheat sheets out. So, we're coming to the end, and it's been quite a treat to have to talk with you. And so for those women who are looking to create and have a safe space for them to start to talk about their truths, I know that you've got
Original Queen.
So how can they join that? How can they find people like yourself and me so that they have somebody that they can talk to? I mean, because
Yes.
I know your friends, and I know that you are surrounded by really great people, and the people who are attracted to what you talk about and what you speak about are people who are committed to making a difference in their own lives as well as the lives of others. And so I just want to get people plugged into what it is that you're doing, because I know it will make a huge difference in their life.
Thank you. It will. And it already is, put it like that. So what I suggest individuals do is they go to my website, ucqueen.com. The website, they will be able to listen to a couple of excerpts directly out of the book. They will see the original Queen's announcement, description. They'll be able to connect with that link and join it. It's free to join. They'll be able to see reviews from the book. They'll be able to read about me. They'll see my introduction to the book. They'll hear what I'm talking about in the book, and it gives them a deeper sense of what I wrote about. They also will be able to download the ebook talking about the legacies and download the ritual. So I would say go there first. Go there. I set it up so that they could get all the information they needed in whatever place they are at. And I recommend that they do purchase the book. I made sure that it's in paperback, hardback, Kindle, audio, because we absorb information differently. So, and it's all over. It's Amazon, Target, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, wherever you purchase your books, you will be able to find the original Queen. Audiobook, Kindle. And I say, read the book. And as you're reading it, understand that it's a healing tool. It's my story, but it's also your story. And you can slowly begin to unwrap that box of secrets that you so eloquently wrapped up and put over in the closet. Yeah, and I'm developing social media so that it will be on Pinterest, YouTube, Instagram. I look at this as a movement, not just as a book. It's a movement. It's a movement of us to develop ourselves as the queens that we are. And so that's what I would suggest to everyone to do. And if they don't do anything else, download the 5 steps for the appreciation journal and begin there to take those first steps. And then share it with everybody that you can. I have the podcast uploaded on the website. And it's so amazing with podcasts because each one is different, because each host has a different set of questions. And it's amazing and it's wonderful for me because I get to explain in different ways on different platforms. And that means that other people can hear the message for them, not one message. It goes out in so many different ways.
Absolutely. So it's U as in umbrella, C as in cat, queens,
.com. Yeah, very easy.
So that is where you will find the book. I know that I had told her when she wrote the book that I was going to buy 10 copies of the book and then I was going to share it out with my friends. So if you are one of the people that I count as my friend, then just know that your book is coming. We're going to be sending that out to you because I think it will make a huge difference. And as I said, what I really got to see in my event is not everybody has a safe place to talk about their truths. And I just really wanted to open your minds, listeners, and open my friends' minds to let's stop having these legacies of silence, endurance, and mothering.
And I also want to make sure I let everyone know after Labor Day, I will start free book discussions. Waiting till the summer to end. So please sign up at Original Queens. The only individuals that will be inside of the book discussions will be those individuals who sign up at Original Queens. The Original Queens will have free book discussions starting after Labor Day and have some other really fun activities going on also in that group. So sign up.
I know it's going to be really great. The conversations are going to be really deep and powerful. I can't say that they won't be. She's going to tap into something that you have never told anybody before. And I just know I can count on her for that, not in a difficult or challenging way, but just to open up a place of hurt that you have kept hidden and silent for so many years. So Ahmondra, it's been fabulous as always to spend time with you. Thank you so much for your time. And listeners, please keep coming back to the Her Money Story podcast to hear guests like Ahmondra share their truths about what they're going through that I think will make a big difference in your life. So keep coming back. Watch out for the next episode. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Felicia. I appreciate you and love you.
Bye-bye.
Love you too. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Her Money Story Podcast. Want more from Felicia Gopaul? Then subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss a minute. While you're there, feel free to rate and leave a review. We really appreciate it. And if you're interested in going deeper, visit FeliciaGopaul.com. Thank you again, and we'll catch you in our next episode.